Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Without Regret, the podcast, where we bring you real stories of people overcoming unimaginable odds and their stories of recovery. And this week, my guest shares her story of overcoming alcohol use disorder and the unusual route she took to get there. So join me in welcoming Crystal Fedeli as she talks about her Sinclair method, and not her Sinclair method, but the Sinclair method that she used to overcome her addiction to alcohol. Thank you so much, Crystal.
Well, thank you so much for reaching out and for being a guest on my podcast. I was refreshing. It's been a while since we booked this, so I was refreshing my memory. So it looks like you have battled some alcohol problems. I don't know how you feel about the term alcoholic, or I'm curious to see your take on it. I've talked to some people who are just like gung-ho with AA and, believe alcohol is a disease. And then I've talked to people that are just like, absolutely not. I don't think it's a disease. And they don't like the word alcoholic. So I'm curious to see your take on it, because it looks like you definitely have a different approach to alcoholism.
So basically, thank you so much for having me. And it's so nice to meet you. And so basically I have a little bit of a mixture of like everything that you just described. So I come from a research standpoint. So one of my grad degrees is in research and analysis. So I've studied the research extensively on this, and I've conducted my own research on it. And so basically I come from more of a research standpoint, like evidence-based, which is juxtaposed to what our current recovery system is based off of, and hence what our society believes at large, which is more of a practice-based approach, which is based on opinion and tradition, which I can't think of two worse things to base such an important thing off of. But I really base my view on the research, like the evidence. And of course, there's always outliers, right? That the opinions and tradition would work for the outliers, but the most amount of people, the most amount of time, what the research shows us is what's best to at least attempt first. So alcohol use disorder, for the majority of people, I think the research really shows us that I guess you could call it a disease. It's a disorder. It's a disorder of somebody's neurochemistry, their brain matter, if you will. And our brain obviously is not just up here. Our brain is like all throughout our body. I definitely think that is appropriate. For some people, I think it can be behavioral, but I think it's a minority of people. And I think what's confusing is that the symptoms of alcohol use disorder, they are behavioral in nature. So like somebody, picking up a drink, don't worry, there's not alcohol in here, it's coffee, but somebody picking up a drink, it's like, well, we think that's behavioral because they're choosing to pick up the glass. They're choosing to go to the liquor store. But what people don't understand is the brain chemistry stuff that's going on behind that to provoke that to happen. That is where it does become a disorder.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. And is this a disorder that you have suffered from yourself personally?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. So tell me a little bit about your background then, and how you came to want to even research this.
Yeah. So it's my personal story turned my personal victory, my personal suffering turned victory. So basically, I started drinking alcohol just because it was the socially acceptable, normal thing to do, college parties and drinking games, which were very fun. And, but it wasn't, a few years that I realized that alcohol really started to wreak havoc in my life in so many ways, professionally, socially, on my career. I lost a job. I was kicked out of a prestigious higher educational university. Just so many ways that alcohol wreaked havoc. So I sought help. I sought help. I went to my therapist. I went to, my doctor. I went to my pastor. I went to the front of church after church service for prayer. I prayed. I begged God for the answer. I went to support groups such as AA and Celebrate Recovery. And the answer always was from everybody that, Crystal, if you can't moderate your drinking and through nothing but sheer willpower, then you have to just abstain for the rest of your life and through nothing but sheer willpower. And so I really tried. I tried so hard. And there were times where I was able to go, sprees of, not consuming alcohol. But the obsessive thoughts and the cravings just came and came and came and came. And, I gave into it eventually every single time. And it was like, wherever I left off, like if I left off drinking like 20 drinks in one day, one night, that's where I picked up. And that's something that we would call like the alcohol deprivation effect. So it doesn't really do you a service to just stop cold turkey, because you will pick up, it back up statistically speaking, and you will pick up right where you left off. So, anyways, one day I was just, kind of researching this on my own. This is before I earned my degrees. And I came across this speaker who is claiming that they found the cure to alcoholism. And I was listening to it and I thought it was way too good to be true, because it was basically you take one simple pill and you will be able to control your drinking or not drink if you don't want to drink effortlessly. And I thought it was like way too good to be true. So originally I totally discounted it, but then I got like really desperate, which I was already really desperate, but desperate enough that I was like, you know what? It's not going to work for me if I don't try it. So let me try it because it might work. So I went to my doctor to get the medication, and
Can I ask what the medication was?
Oh, yeah, of course. It's
Okay.
Naltrexone. So 50 milligrams of Naltrexone.
Just Naltrexone. So not Contrave.
No.
Okay.
No, Naltrexone.
So Contrave is Naltrexone with I'll come back to it because I can't think of what it is now. It's an antidepressant though.
Okay.
Well,
I'll
it's a combination of the two. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. I've actually never heard of that medication before.
It is widely used for alcoholism and drug addiction and weight loss.
Kill 3 birds with 1 stone, right?
Maybe so.
Naltrexone, I think, is used for weight loss too.
Is it? Maybe it is all by itself too. Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
so I basically, and so I, set out to get this medication, and I remember my family doctor's office, they were like, what I told them everything I just told you, basically, probably not so coherently because I was suffering back then, but I told them basically what I just told you. And I was like, hey, I came across this and I really want to try it. And they basically were just like, we don't think you need medication. They tried to counsel me on keeping a drink log. And if you've had a drink or two, just stop. You don't need to drink more. Just stop, And so crazy because it's like, did I not just tell you? And because this went on for nearly a decade, like this was going on nearly a decade that I was suffering like this, And so, then I went to, I insist on speaking to a doctor that was higher up because I was like, I need this medication. And I am that person that is determined. It's what my husband was attracted to about me at first. And it's the thing that, he annoys him the most sometimes, but I'm a determined person. So anyways, I spoke with the clinical director of the practice, and she basically told me that she thought I was trying to go in through the back door for treatment. So anyways, and then I went to another doctor, and that doctor told me that I was trying to be my own doctor and I was trying to treat myself. And then I went to a third doctor's office and they just refused to prescribe me the medication. And then I was like, obviously really discouraged at this point, but I kept going, and I found a doctor who was willing to prescribe me the medication. The only thing is that I had to come out of pocket because they didn't take insurance, which can be the story for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so I was a single mom at the time, and I was really struggling financially, hence my nonprofit, which is separate from this, to help single moms who can't afford basic necessities. But so I robbed Peter to pay Paul. I took from my rent and I paid this doctor. I got my medication, and I was completely on my own to figure it out. But I was able to figure out. And within 2 to 3 months, I literally got better. So I had no more episodes, as I call them, where I drank like way too much and did something that wreaked havoc in my life when I was drunk out of my mind. Yeah. And so I got better. And of course, there's been hiccups and there's been wrinkles along the way because I've had to figure this out on my own. But at least I was able to figure it out, right? Instead of being where I was for nearly a decade, literally just being in the same place, over drinking alcohol, completely wreaking havoc. So that's
including homelessness, right?
What, I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Including homelessness?
Yeah. I don't think the homelessness really had to do with the alcohol stuff. That's probably like a whole other story. But I didn't have a lot of support, emotionally or financially, just because of my childhood. And unfortunately, I guess the family I come from. Yeah. So, which is interesting if we're talking about how alcohol kind of intercepts into this story, because every time I would drink, what would come out was the deep abandonment and trauma issues. So, but yeah, the homelessness was more because I had no support. It was me and nobody else. And then when I got pregnant with my first, her bio father told me, like, I don't know why you would have this baby. Like, if you have this baby, you are completely on your own. And so I had the baby and he left and I was completely on my own. So it's nice, right?
Right. How long were you homeless?
So with her, I was homeless probably, it was like a month and a half. And then we got into temporary housing through my university. The dean of students helped me get into housing through some fund that they had.
So throughout this, you're still going to school?
Yes. Sorry. That's actually okay. My mic is picking up on my first out there talking. She's very loud for some reason.
Oh, I can't hear it, so that's okay.
Okay. I'm sorry, your question was
you were going to school throughout all this. You still managed to go to school.
Sorry, mom brain. Yes. So basically it's like all coming back to me now, like Celine Dion, her song, right?
Cue so I had jeans.
Yeah. So I had gotten better, and we were in homeless temporary housing. Then we got into more permanent housing. I started my new job with Child Protective Services, ironically, and then I got better, and I was kicked out of a prestigious university, not because of alcohol, but because I was suffering from postpartum depression, and they broke the civil rights laws, and wouldn't allow me an extension over the summer to complete my work, even though I was suffering from postpartum depression, which that's a whole other story. And then I got the medication, got better. And then, yes, I applied to another university just as soon as I got kicked out, because that's how I am. I just keep on going. And I got into another university, earned 2 master's degrees, and the journey of earning my 2 master's degrees, I was really just learning how to heal from alcohol use disorder through alternative methods.
So. Okay. Wow, that's a lot. And you know what? We don't have to focus just on the alcohol stuff. I know that's your kind of purpose, I guess you could say. But certainly don't want to focus on just that. I think it's a bigger thing for someone to see that you weren't just battling alcoholism. You were battling being a single mother. You were battling childhood traumas. You were battling, homelessness. You were trying to go to school. I imagine taking out loans or scholarships to go. So I mean, all of those things together kind of make your success story just that much more incredible, right?
Yeah, God has really brought me through some stuff. Yeah, and I always say, like, because the approach to alcohol was always by all these professionals and just everybody. I always say, like, I was like the perfect victim for how our society thinks and approaches this whole issue, because everyone's like, as soon as your mental health stuff gets better, the alcohol stuff will get better. And that was the approach that I suffered under for nearly a decade and never got better. And actually, something else in my story that I didn't share with you is I had a therapist for nearly 5 years, and she saw me suffer under this approach for nearly 5 years. And then at the tail end of me being with her. Yeah. And so I came across this method, and for the last, was it 2 or 3 months of my time with her, basically I started this method, and I literally got better in 2 to 3 months. It didn't mean that, like, once I took it, I had no more episodes, but they became less frequent. Like, instead of it happening one day and then recovering, and then the next day I'm back at the bottle, and then maybe recovering for 2 days, and then I'm back at the bottle for 2 more days, like, it became like maybe once, and then I had a 3-day run, and then another episode, and then a 5-day run and another episode, then 2 weeks and another episode. Like, it became less frequent, and the amount of alcohol I was drinking became less and less and less. And I remember it was like, I think it was like a month in between episodes, and I had one more. And at that point, she had, basically said to me, I just don't agree with your approach. And I don't think that I'm the right therapist for you anymore, because I don't fundamentally agree with your approach. And she dropped me as a client. And she, of course, she's a social worker. So she's like, I'll help you find another therapist who's more aligned, which also doesn't make sense, because the code of ethics says that you're supposed to present the client with all of their options and let them choose and let them lead. But anyways, I don't want to get started on social worker. I almost got a social work degree. That was the degree that actually kicked me out of a university that's very well known, here in Jersey. It's very hypocritical, because, they're the ones who advocate for all of this social justice stuff, but then they discriminate against me. But that's another story. But yeah, so yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot what question I was answering, and I kind of got on this bird walk here. But I always say, like, I was kind of like the perfect storm, because everybody kind of took that approach, like, once you get better with your mental health, your alcohol stuff will get better. But it was actually quite the opposite, because once my alcohol stuff got better, oh my gosh, my mental health healing skyrocketed. And probably because I wasn't re-traumatizing myself by getting so drunk and doing something stupid, or hanging out with some guy who was dangerous or whatever. And then also, obviously, alcohol messes with, like, your mood and your hormones and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean,
so the theory that alcoholism is a result of a mental health issue, I mean, maybe it is. Maybe the mental health issue makes you start the drinking, but fixing the mental health issue isn't going to make you stop drinking.
Yeah, no,
because the drinking continue. It's like I can see a vicious circle there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like, I never want to say, like, as a blanket statement, this is the truth for everyone.
Right.
But, I think for the majority of people, I think alcohol use disorder, for the majority of people, is a neurochemical disorder. And so it's kind of just like if you have a disorder of, like, your inner ear, right? Well, then you're not going to be able to hear correctly. Or if you have a disorder of whatever's going on in your eyes, like, I wear contacts because something is off in there. Something is disordered. I don't know all, like, the terminology and all the science behind that, but and so I need contacts and I need glasses, or I could get LASIK for it, to get more to the root cause and correct it, right? And so it's like, it's the same with alcohol use disorder. It's just it's just my neurochemistry, right? So basically what happens is when I drink alcohol, as compared to my husband who doesn't suffer from alcohol use disorder, or I should say who hasn't had to overcome it, because I don't suffer from it anymore. I've overcome it. Or I always say I conquered it, right? So basically, like when I drink alcohol, my brain will push way more endorphins than his brain. And so basically, if I want to drink and I want to moderate my drinking, the only way to do that is the Sinclair method. And that is taking 50 milligrams of naltrexone 1 hour before I consume alcohol. That is what I have to do for the rest of my life, unless I'm prayed over and some kind of miracle happens.
Okay.
Just like I have to wear contacts until I'm prayed over and
Right.
poof, I'm healed, or I have LASIK or whatever. LASIK surgery for my eyes. And so, yeah, I just have to take this medication for the rest of my life every time I want to drink. And so what naltrexone does is it's an opiate blocker. So it sits on the receptor sites, right? It takes an hour to sit on the receptor sites. And so my brain is pushing the endorphins, which indicates to my body, I need alcohol to survive. Like that's what it's telling my body. And so basically my brain is pushing the endorphins, but the naltrexone prohibits my brain receiving the endorphins at the receptor sites. And so basically over time, that neural pathway weakens of I need alcohol to survive, of being on the Sinclair method. And, then the obsessive thoughts and the cravings completely go away because my brain unlearns the behavior. So I'm not sure if I'm explaining well, if that makes sense, but that's kind of like the science behind it as I've read up in the research.
So if you're changing the actual functionality of your brain, why do you have to continue taking the medication for the rest of your life?
So my brain doesn't relearn the behavior.
It can relearn. Because without it, you still have the overactive endorphins.
Yeah.
And they will eventually come back. So the only reason I even know a little bit about this, and I'm wondering now, my ex-husband was an alcoholic and he was taking, I didn't know what it was called. They called it like a detox medication that's supposed to prohibit your cravings for alcohol. Now I wonder if he was taking naltrexone. So he was given that medication when he was in a detox facility.
Yeah.
And so there's that piece of it. But even more recently, I was talking to my doctor about weight loss, and she mentioned the Contrave as an option. And I was researching it before I was making a decision if this was a route I wanted to take. And I personally chose not to because of the Wellbutrin side of it, I guess. So I understand how the Contrave works, which includes naltrexone, right? So, and I understand that they give that medication to patients to help them with drug addiction and alcoholism. So I understand what you're saying because I've done that research. The listeners may not fully understand, but I do. I get what you're saying. And I opted not to go that route. So let's talk about side effects.
Yeah.
Especially because it's interesting. So do you still drink today? You just take this pill beforehand and you just don't drink as much, or you don't drink at all anymore?
Yeah. If and when I want to drink, I do take naltrexone. I haven't had a drink for probably a year at this point. I think I always forget if it's 40 or 60. I think it's 40% of people who do the Sinclair method actually lose all desire for alcohol. Like kind of just the thought of it to me right now is kind of like, ugh, because it's just going to make me tired and I just it doesn't seem appealing to me, but if and when I want to drink, I will take my naltrexone.
And you only take it before you drink. You don't take it every day, like a regimen.
Right. Yeah.
I think I've heard about this on the radio. So side effects, because you only take it when you're about to drink. So you probably don't are there risks of seizures with that medication?
I don't know about that one, to be honest with you.
There is with Contrave, especially if you drink. So if you're on Contrave and it may be the Wellbutrin piece of it that is the issue there, highly recommend that you do not drink, especially to excess if you're on it, because it can cause seizures.
Yeah. So naltrexone used through the Sinclair method.
I want to get into that a little bit more too. When you say Sinclair method, what does that actually mean? But
yeah, I was going to just totally mom brain tonight, but the scientific term is pharmacological extinction. That's why I paused and I was trying to remember. But anyways, so yeah, pharmacological extinction, the Sinclair method, it's named after the late Dr. David Sinclair, who dedicated his entire life's career towards alcohol use disorder research. But basically, that's the only way. If you want to moderate your drinking, that is the only way that you are able to do that. If you suffer from alcohol use disorder and if you can't moderate through sheer willpower, there are a total of 6 medications that are used to treat alcohol use disorder in our Western world. And so naltrexone is one of the 6. And there are 5 others, but every other medication is to cut down your cravings with the goal of abstinence. And in fact, if you do drink on the other medications, it doesn't help you moderate. So going overboard, you will most likely go overboard if you drink on the other medications. But naltrexone can also be used if it's not the Sinclair method way with the same goal as the other 5 medications. And that's if you take it every day or if you take it in the form of Vivitrol, which is a shot, an injection with a 30-day release. So if you take naltrexone every single day, or if you have Vivitrol, the 30-day release as a shot injected into you, then you will not be able to moderate your drinking. It just won't work. So the goal for that is abstinence. But if you want to moderate, it's 1 hour before you drink. So that's the Sinclair method.
That's it. Just 50 milligrams, 1 hour before you drink. That's the method.
It's really magic. It honestly is. I mean, it's not magic, but I understand the science. Like, you know, it's like an opiate blocker. So it's on your receptor sites.
Yeah. It just basically makes your brain not enjoy it anymore. Like your those endorphins, those hormones that get released, those happy hormones that say, oh, this makes me so happy, those get suppressed.
So like you enjoy it as like like my husband enjoys having a beer,
like a normal
or 2
person,
or 3 or 4. I don't know. Probably 3. You know, he's a big guy, but you know, if he's watching football at the bar out with his guy friends or whatever, but like he doesn't have that like just more, like I can't stop, I can't control it.
Right.
So like you enjoy the alcohol, but you don't have the like more kind of thing. That's the thing. Like a lot of people think that like alcohol use disorder, like you're enjoying drinking. And that's why you do it. I didn't find that. I was miserable. I just couldn't stop. I was like on this autopilot and I'd be like, it would be 9:35 or 9:45 and I'd be like, oh my God, the bar's going to close soon. I need to, you know, get a 6-pack, get a 12-pack, get, you know, more or whatever to go home because I just needed more. Like I couldn't stop, but I wasn't enjoying
like you said,
myself.
You felt like your brain was telling your body it was going to die if you didn't have that.
Yeah, I mean, of course you don't like think that like, oh my God, I'm going to die. It's like a subconscious kind of thought, but yeah. Crazy.
It's interesting because I had weight loss surgery like 2.5 years ago. And with my office that I had the surgery with, they provide a counselor for free. Nice. And so I'm taking full advantage of that because I've been struggling with the weight coming back on and being able to control some cravings. And that's where the contrave comes in and all that stuff. So she's not the one that recommended it, but she used those exact words with me. She's like, your brain thinks you're going to die if you don't get this food. So you have to teach it through sheer willpower that it's not going to die. You're not going to die if you don't have this food. So I feel like I'm battling a very similar addictive thing where I can't stop eating with food versus alcohol. I can stop after a drink or two like that. I can handle that, but I can't stop with food. So yeah. But naltrexone wasn't something they offered for that. Is that specifically for alcohol? Does it not suppress other? Now, you don't take it every single day. I was under the impression that I was going to have to take this Contrave every single day. And I was concerned with it killing my desire to do other things and not just eat, but with other things. Like, for example, having the motivation to do this podcast or having the motivation to with my job. I was afraid of it dampening those types of things down, sexual pleasure, you know what I mean? Like other things like that I was worried about. So, but I would imagine since you don't take it every single day, that's probably not an issue at all for you. And you probably haven't taken it for a whole year, right?
Yeah, I haven't. I do know the most common side effects are nausea, dizziness. Sounds fun, right?
Sounds like you're drunk.
Right. Yeah. No, it's not pleasant if you have the side effects. But something you can do is you can take there's a couple ways to combat it. To start with 25 milligrams, and then to work your way up to 50. And also taking the medication before you go to bed to get your body used to it. So there's a couple different ways to, if you do get side effects, to kind of combat those.
Yeah. So how long has it been? So you suffered for 10 years-ish?
Yeah, nearly a decade.
And how long have you now been, I don't want to say sober? For a year, you've been sober, but like how long have you been on the naltrexone?
Yeah, how long have I conquered my
Yes, how long have you
alcohol?
conquered it? Yes.
Yeah, it's like it wasn't like this streamlined thing because I had alcohol use disorder, like, so it's kind of like autism, like it's on a spectrum, right? Alcohol use disorder is on a spectrum. So there's low, medium, high. Well, I was like breaking the thermometer. I was like super high, like, so it wasn't this streamlined thing. Perhaps if I was like medium, perhaps, I could have been like other people I know, and they just, they just went on the method and boom, they were, fine, from the first time they did it. So like, there were wrinkles and hiccups along the way. But my journey with this whole thing, it started in 2019. So it's been 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. It'll be 6 years. We're coming up on, 6 years. And there was a time where I switched and I took another medication that was geared towards abstinence too, because I wanted to try that out as well. Because again, there's a total of 6 medications to treat alcohol use disorder. But I'm back on the Sinclair method way because I just feel like it just provides the most freedom. And actually, in fact, the Sinclair method is also used if you want to become sober. So to become sober, your brain has to unlearn the behavior. So you can either go cold turkey with the assistance of another medication or taking Vivitrol again, or the naltrexone every single day, not on the Sinclair method. Or you can do the Sinclair method, and then you can go sober after that if you want. And that's kind of my preference because your brain like literally slowly unlearns the behavior. So yeah.
Well, that is all super interesting. So let's talk about your website, Crystal Fedeli. Is that how you say that? .com.
Yeah.
And what is this? What is your mission here?
Yeah. So basically, I'm on a mission to do so many things, but basically I am just on a mission to help women, develop the courage to heal. So, and courage, I say, because, and to talk about what courage is, and to talk about what courage is, I have to talk about what courage is not. And so courage is not like the absence of fear. Courage is like the opposite of fear. It is being extremely fearful, but doing it anyway, right? And when you are trying to heal in the face of not knowing how, when it seems that nobody understands or knows how to help you, even the professionals, and when it seems that nobody even supports you, right? Because so many people, even to this day, do not support how I healed from alcohol use disorder, which, like, I cannot for the life of me understand why, because it's like, do you propose that I go back to doing the thing I did for nearly a decade because you support that way, but it didn't help me and it actually
Right.
doesn't help, 99% of people? That's what our failure rate right now in the Western world is for treating alcohol use disorder. It is a 99% failure rate, and only 10 out of 100 even seek help for recovery, meaning 90% of people who suffer from this will never even seek help. They will live their entire lives alcohol wreaking havoc, everyone around them, their kids, all the trauma that is caused by that, a spouse, right? And they will die alcohol wreaking havoc, right? For the 10% who do seek help, it takes them on average 10 years before they even seek help. So I think we have to look at, why are only 10% of people not seeking help, and why does it take them 10 years on average to even seek help? Perhaps because we're shaming people and blaming them when it's actually not their fault. It's the biggest gaslighting of the century. And being a former survivor of childhood trauma and sexual trauma, oh gosh, was walking out this journey triggering because it was so much gaslighting. The whole system is gaslighting. But anyways, and then only 1 out of 10 people will actually recover. So we have a 99% failure rate helping people. So anyways, my whole point is, to, just help people, develop the courage to heal in the face of all that. And so when it comes to alcohol recovery, really reframing our understanding of alcohol recovery and helping women find the path of recovery that actually works for them. Because I actually believe in the value of presenting somebody all of their options, which comes from the research that I've done, the extensive research I've done and I've conducted, and, really just kind of uncovering what their goals are with alcohol. If I could wave a magic wand and anything could be possible, like, what would you want? Even if you're fearful and you think it's impossible, what do you want? Do you want to moderate, or do you want to be abstinent and not suffer from the obsessive thoughts and the cravings? Well, guess what? Both ways are possible. And these are your options. And hey, these are the professionals that are actually going to help you. This is the professional that's going to take your health insurance. And I can count them on one hand, not even, that I'm connected to, because there's so many doctors and therapists and support groups and churches and and that's not to talk down about them, but it's like they're fundamentally against giving somebody the choice because they're an addict, they're an alcoholic, and they're choosing to do it in their minds, when really the research tells us the exact opposite.
Mm-hmm.
So my whole goal is to reframe our understanding when it comes to alcohol, of alcohol recovery, and to help, again, women find the path of recovery that actually works for them. So
your doctors, are they all in New Jersey, or are they all over the country?
they're all over the United States.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
That's cool. That is really cool. I think I want to download your give me my gift, Crystal. I want my gift.
Yeah, my website says that.
Yeah. So, I just want to look at it and see what it says.
Yeah.
Awesome. Is it going to get emailed to me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I'll check it out later. I'm not going to check it out and read it right now. That would be a really boring podcast segment. Hold on while I read this. So I had another question come to mind, and now I have mom brain, even though I don't have young children anymore. I can still have mom brain, right?
It stays with you.
So, okay, well, you kind of answered that question. One of the things I had on here was, how do you define alcoholism? And I think you kind of did that with the spectrum, but you call it alcohol use disorder.
Yeah, that's what the DSM-5 calls it. The diagnostic, what does that stand for? The DSM, basically the book that has all the diagnoses, like major depressive disorder, schizophrenia. I don't know the technical term for schizophrenia disorder. But like just the technical kind of scientific term.
Okay.
I guess the street term is like alcoholism.
Right. Right. Okay. So your goal is just to help women just figure out like what's going to work for them. And I agree with you so much. Like, why do people care so much how you are able to make this work for you if it's working? Like, who cares? It doesn't affect their life at all. In fact, it might, the people closest to you, affect their life in a positive way, that you're finding this balance. Who cares how you found it? It's weird to me.
Yeah, I find that with most things, like, because I really come from like that standpoint of, hey, like, I don't care what's going to work. I just want to find what's going to work in my marriage, with mental health, with, finances, with like whatever. Like, I'm not committed to something. But there's so many people who is it cognitive dissonance? Like, they're just so committed to, it's kind of like, I guess, the theory of first mention, right? Like what you first learned, what you first heard, what is ingrained into you, by society, by culture. And I really don't get it, but I don't know. Maybe that's why I don't always get along. I don't play well in the sandbox now. The other kids don't like me now because I just I'm not committed to an opinion that originates from Crystal Fedeli. I'm really passionate about, the Bible says that, if you know the truth, then the truth will set you free. And the Passion Translation, which is like one of my favorite translation of the Bible, because it just puts things in like modern day terms, and really just like, because Greek is such an expressive language. Like one word in English could mean 5 Greek words. Don't even get me started on that. But and so anyway, so I love the Passion Translation because it really defines what the Bible is talking about. But the Passion Translation says that if you accept the truth, then you will be set free. So it's not only about knowing the truth, it's about accepting the truth. And so I'm on a mission to find out the truth because I want to be set free, and I want to help other people be set free if I can help them. But I don't think that perhaps that's the goal of everybody. Perhaps there's pride in being right. So
yeah, maybe, for sure. That was my question, though. I'm glad you brought that up. So, because you obviously are a believer, and you mentioned God, and even in the very beginning of this podcast, you gave some credit, if not all credit, to God for this. But obviously, you're also taking this medication. You mentioned praying for God to help you, and so it's interesting that you have that belief, but you're also very scientific. And then you also found this path to the naltrexone to help you, this Sinclair method, right? That's what it was, to help you. So how do you the word reconcile the two of those things? How does that all fit together for you?
It's funny. This actually reminds me of a conversation I had with an ex-friend. But actually, the last conversation I had was this conversation with her. And God love her. I pray the best for her. But there's like this belief in some, people in Christianity that somehow this is separate. And I completely disagree. I think God is the ultimate science. I think God created science. I think God created the very things that created medication. I think God created the people and, put the idea in somebody's head, to bring about this amazing miracle of naltrexone and the Sinclair method. Just like God, put the cure for cancer, the cure for me to be able to see, contact lenses and LASIK surgery and glasses in somebody else's head, and they were born, and then they, brought this about, and research brought it about, and science brought it about because God orchestrated it all. And why is it so separate with medication? Well, it's that cognitive dissonance pride thing again, I guess.
But those same people will take penicillin, right? They will take an antibiotic. They'll get potentially a COVID vaccination. Like, they'll take the Paxlovid for the COVID, but naltrexone for, I think it also maybe has something to do with not being able to see it. Like, it's a hidden disease, right? But a lot of things are. For example, I have multiple sclerosis. That's a very hidden disease. I take a medication for that. Nobody seems to think that that's a problem. So,
well, alcoholics are addicts. They are terrible people. They are liars. They are dirty.
It's a choice. It all comes from thinking that it's their choice.
Yeah. I'm being sarcastic, obviously, for your audience. But
yeah.
Because I am one, apparently. But that always doesn't, and I never understand that either, how Christians could say, so how long have you been clean? 2,000 years. I got clean when my Jesus, my Savior, was brutalized and beaten beyond recognition, right? And by his stripe, not stripes, because they took all the flesh off his back. By his stripe, I am healed, right? And when he, died and took the keys from hell, and he took them back from the devil. And, then he rose on the third day. I have been clean for 2,000 years. I was clean before I was even born. Like, it's, will we ask a cancer patient? Will we ask someone with multiple sclerosis if they're clean? No, absolutely not. So it's time for us to reframe our, now I'm on my soapbox.
That's okay. That's what this is for.
Yeah. It's time for us to reframe our understanding of alcohol recovery, because the stakes are too high if we don't. So, yeah.
I agree. And, it's so interesting because this, counselor that I talked to, she's actually a recovered alcoholic as well. So she often relates my issues or addiction, if you will, to food, to her alcohol thing. And she kind of agrees with me, because in a way I say, I feel like it's almost easier with alcohol or drugs. I feel bad saying that. I don't want people to take it the wrong way, but you can abstain from those things. You cannot abstain from food. I have to eat every day. So I think it makes it a little bit more difficult. I guess with alcohol, and you could say, well, you have to drink something, if you're drinking water or alcohol or whatever, but I don't know. Anyway, it's interesting though that she does approach, but she's not a fan of taking a medication or doing like Ozempic or something like that to help with the weight loss. And that's the thing, as I do, pretty well with like the normal eating, and it's the cravings that kill me. And that's where the brain chemistry thing kind of comes in, that I'm relating to what you're experiencing with alcohol.
Yeah.
Is that my brain is saying you are going to die if you don't have a snack right now.
Well, I believe that James 1:4 says, that, if anybody lacks wisdom, that, he or she should ask from God, ask of God, and God gives it abundantly. And I just believe that God has an answer for you, and I'm going to ask God to give you that wisdom.
Thank
like
you.
Jesus, I just, obviously we're lacking wisdom here, but heaven has an abundance of wisdom for this situation, God. And I just ask that you would give the wisdom. So, I'm sorry. Can you remind me of your name again? I forget.
Tamara.
Amara. Thank you. I'm so
Tamara.
sorry.
Yeah,
I'm terrible.
Okay.
Did you say Amara or Tamara?
Tamara.
Tiamara. Oh my God, that's so pretty. So that Tiamara could, just have what she's looking for and asking for, and truly desiring. And I know that you want us to have the desires of our hearts. So I just pray that in Jesus' name. And I thank you that wisdom is coming. But,
thank you.
yeah, anyways. Yeah, of course. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know enough about the subject, but I know that God does, and I know that we just prayed for wisdom, so it's coming. It'll come when you least expect it.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, this is Crystal Fedeli, CrystalFedeli.com.
Yes.
If anybody wants to go check out her site and learn more about this this method and her research. I did read somebody's review on your website, and they talked about your kind of one-on-one approach, and you don't just, it's not a one size fits all solution. Like you said, you help them figure out what their goals are and how to help them reach those goals. And I think that's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
And specifically with alcohol though, right?
Yeah.
So they could call you and be like, I have this eating problem. Like I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I couldn't help with that. I would love to help everybody with everything. I just, which kind of works against my detriment sometimes, but anyways, yeah, no, I can't help with anything but like alcohol. I mean, I do have a decluttering and organizing business. That's actually the first thing I ever like had as a baby entrepreneur. And so I love that business. I love that program. It's one of my favorites. But yeah,
well, you
I
can
help
plug
with
that one too if you want to.
I have to so I took it away, but I'm putting it back up because I like so missed it. But yeah, and then the alcohol thing is like up there. And then I also have a nonprofit where I just am making sure that as much as I can help it, that no woman ever finds herself pregnant and alone. So that's more of a financial kind of counseling, program. And so, probably your audience may not like find themselves pregnant and alone or a single mom who can't afford basic necessities. But if anyone ever wants to find out how they can support my work and my mission with that, yeah, you can find that too.
Is that also on your crystalfedeli.com?
No, that would be youmadeaway.org.
Youmadeaway.org.
Yes.
Okay. I like it. There might be, pregnant women out there that need help that, this podcast is for anybody that, is struggling and looking for a way to overcome whatever that struggle is, whether it's alcoholism, depression, homelessness, financially, whatever it is. Like, I just like to have people come on and say, look, this is what I dealt with, and this is how I overcame it. And I really like to have different perspectives and stories, because like you, I don't think it's a one size fits all solution for everybody.
Yeah. Nice.
But I just want everybody to be happy.
Yeah, of course. That's why Jesus died, right? So we can have life and have life abundantly.
Absolutely. So I thank you so very much for joining me tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And it's pretty late there now. It's like 8:00. So we'll let you get back to your family.
Get my kids to bed.
Yeah.
Eat the dinner I made.
Right. And I'm going to go make mine. So Thank you so much again. Have a great evening.
You too. Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in to Without Regret, the podcast. I really appreciate it. And I'd like to ask you to please like and subscribe. Leave me a review wherever you get your podcast. That would be really awesome, because that's how my podcast is going to get noticed. So that would be a huge help, or share it on your social media would be awesome as well. Thank you so much. This podcast is a Without Regret production, which is produced by me. Artwork is by me. Everything's by me except for that theme song. That's by a guy named Michael Bruguglio. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/withoutregretpodcast and on Instagram at without_regret_podcast. Thanks again.